Welcome to JEE Advanced 2023 question discussions from Egan Learning. Now here is a question. In the scheme given below, X and Y respectively are, you have the four options given and the reaction scheme, you go through it, you find a metal halide on reaction with aqueous NaOH, use a white precipitate P, and of course you have the filtrate Q. The filtrate contains a compound which is Q. Now this white precipitate P is treated with aqueous H2SO4 and lead dioxide excess and heat. You are getting X, which is a colored species in solution. And the same substance, the filtrate, the Q in the filtrate. That's the second question, the second equation. On reaction with MnOOH twice, which is same as MnO2 H2O, concentrated sulfuric acid, and warming gives a substance Y, and this Y gives a blue coloration with potassium iodide starch paper. So if you go through the reaction scheme, if you are thorough with the qualitative inorganic analysis, the practical chemistry relating to salt analysis, which you do in the chemistry laboratory, you can easily answer this question. This is a metal halide with aqueous NaOH, you have a white precipitate and filtrate containing the compound Q. And the second equation there, this white precipitate P, on reaction with aqueous H2SO4, lead dioxide excess and heat. I think you can recall what this particular reaction is, to give a colored species in solution. So that speaks to you, okay? It is permanganic acid test for manganese ions. So X is permanganic acid, that is HMnO4, permanganic acid, which is pink solution. So X is the permanganic acid, which is pink in color, and for the P is the corresponding manganese compound containing manganese ions, and it is with the white precipitate P, which is obtained on adding NaOH to the metal halide. It means that the precipitate P is manganese hydroxide, and therefore the metal halide is manganese halide, so manganese chloride. And when it is manganese chloride or manganese halide reacting with the filtrate, reacting with aqueous NaOH, the compound Q formed in the filtrate, of course the reaction will be simple, N plus 2 NaOH, you have MnOH twice, that is P plus 2 NaCl, so it is Q. So P is MnOH twice and Q is sodium chloride or maybe sodium bromide if you have taken manganese bromide as a starting compound. Okay? So X is permanganic acid, HMnO4, that is a typical permanganic acid test for manganese ions. While you read it, you must actually you have to click this aspect, that the equation number 2, the conversion P to X, is the permanganic acid test for manganese ions. So P is manganese hydroxide. That is actually the clue. The colored species is pink colored permanganic acid. And Q therefore is sodium chloride or sodium bromide. And if it is sodium chloride or sodium bromide, on reaction with MnOH twice, MnOH twice is MnO2 H2O, okay, So on reaction with the manganese dioxide and concentrated sulfuric acid, if it is chloride or bromide, on reaction with manganese dioxide and concentrated sulfuric acid, chlorine gas is formed or bromine gas is formed. The chloride on reaction with sulfuric acid gives HCl, which is oxidized by manganese dioxide forming chlorine. If it is bromide, hydrogen bromide is formed, which is oxidized by manganese dioxide to bromine. So the product Y is chlorine or bromine. Chlorine or bromine, and this chlorine or bromine gives a blue coloration with potassium iodide starch. Now what is the chemistry behind it? The chlorine oxidizes potassium iodide to iodine, and iodine forms a blue complex with starch. Therefore it turns the starch paper blue. So it's also the case with the bromine. Bromine oxidizes iodide to iodine, and iodine forms a blue complex with starch. Okay? So Y is chlorine or bromine. So now we'll look at the options. A is chromate and bromine, so it cannot be a correct option. The second is manganate, permanganate and chlorine, permanganate and chlorine, X and Y. The question is about X and Y. X is permanganic acid, that's correct, and Y is chlorine, that can be a correct option. Permanganate and chlorine, it's manganate. MnO2 minus is manganate, so manganate cannot be an option. The third one is permanganate and chlorine, that's an option, correct option. First is wrong, second is wrong. The third is permanganate and chlorine, that's a correct option, because what is formed here is permanganic acid contain permanganate ion. MnO4 minus, and X is permanganate, and Y is chlorine or bromine. In this case, it's chlorine, so permanganate and chlorine, that's the correct option. And D is manganese sulfate and HOCl, that is also not a correct option. So there is only one correct option. X is permanganate and Y is chlorine. X is permanganate, Y is chlorine, P is manganese hydroxide, and Q is sodium chloride, and the metal halide is manganese chloride. Simple chemistry relating to the detection of manganese ions in qualitative inorganic analysis. So if you are reminded of that, I think the question can be very easily answered. So the colored species in solution with acid, medium, lead dioxide, etc. When you read this, click in your mind that it is permanganic acid test. It is permanganate here, and therefore P is a manganese salt containing manganese ions, of course, and it is obtained by reaction of a metal halide with aqueous NaOH, means it is manganese hydroxide. So P is manganese hydroxide, and the filtered Q must contain the sodium chloride or sodium bromide, and in this case the option is sodium chloride. So it is manganese chloride giving manganese hydroxide and sodium chloride, and manganese hydroxide answering the permanganic acid test to give permanganate, X pink colored, and Q, that is sodium chloride, in the filtrate on reaction with a manganese dioxide and concentrated sulfuric acid gives chlorine, and chlorine of course can be tested by using potassium iodide starch paper, which is turned blue. Okay? Thank you.